I had 40 seconds before the champagne flutes hit the table. And the man in the charcoal suit stopped breathing. My hands were shaking just enough to smear the ink as I folded the receipt in half. Then in half again. Then once more, until it was small enough to hide between my fingers. The paper felt thin. Too thin. Like it might tear before it reached him. The ballroom glowed with soft gold light, chandeliers hanging low like crowns. Everywhere I looked there was money, quiet money. The kind that didn't flash or shout, but hummed beneath the surface. Silk dresses brushed marble floors. Expensive shoes moved without hurry. Laughter floated through the air, smooth and practiced. No one here expected violence. They never do. The quartet on the stage transitioned into a slower piece, violins pulling the room into a kind of suspended calm. Waitstaff moved in synchronized lines, trays balanced perfectly, smiles carefully neutral. That was my job. Blend in. Surf. Disappear. Instead, I was about to do the one thing that could get me killed. Across the room, near the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, Julian Co stood with his fiancée's hand resting possessively on his arm. He looked relaxed. Comfortable. Like a man who had never once considered the possibility that the woman beside him had just ordered his execution. I wasn't supposed to be near the private lounge. That space was reserved for the hosts, their inner circle, and people with security badges instead of aprons. But one of the coordinators had asked me to grab an extra bottle of reserve champagne from storage, and the shortest route cut past the lounge entrance. That's how it happened. Not because I was reckless. Because I was doing my job. The door wasn't fully closed. Just a crack. Enough for voices to slip through. A woman's voice first. Controlled. Beautiful in a way that made your skin prickle. He'll stand when the toast starts. I slowed without meaning to. My feet stopped. Another voice replied, male, clipped, professional. And the staff? Cleared. One server at the bar. Two near the kitchen doors. Balcony team has visual. Balcony team. My pulse spiked. I knew that phrase. Even without understanding every word, I knew what that meant. A sniper didn't need to be close. I leaned back into the shadow of the wall, my heart hammering so hard I was sure they could hear it. The woman continued. Once the music swells, he won't hear the shot. I felt cold all over. I recognized her voice now. Evelyn Park. Julian's fiancée. The woman every society blog called elegant, philanthropic, untouchable. She laughed softly. Make it clean. No mistakes. There was a pause. Then, quieter, colder. If he suffers, it complicates things. My stomach dropped. This wasn't speculation. This wasn't anger spoken in the heat of an argument. This was logistics. A decision already made. I held my breath as footsteps approached. The door opened fully. Evelyn stepped out, smoothing the sleeve of her ivory dress, her face composed into something serene and radiant. She passed me without a glance. Didn't see me. Didn't know that everything she just said had been burned into my brain. I stood there for several seconds after she left, frozen, until my lungs burned and forced me to breathe again. Then I realized something that made my knees weak. The music had changed. The toast was coming. The ballroom looked different when I returned. Sharper. Every reflection in the mirrors felt intentional. Every shadow suspicious. Julian stood with his back to the windows, city lights glittering behind him like a throne. He was tall, broad-shouldered, his suit tailored so precisely it looked like it had been carved onto him. His posture was relaxed. His smile easy. A man completely unaware that his final moments were already being counted down by the woman holding his arm. Evelyn leaned in close to him, whispering something that made him chuckle. Her fingers tightened slightly on his sleeve, possessive, affectionate. I felt sick. 40 seconds. That's all I had. I could leave. Clock out. Tell myself it wasn't my responsibility. Tell myself people like Julian Co didn't need saving. Men like him had bodyguards, lawyers, power. Men like him didn't die because of waitresses. But then I thought about my brother. About the ICU room where machines beeped in steady intervals, keeping time with a life that might or might not come back. About how strangers in scrubs had been kinder to us than anyone else in the world. About how helpless I'd felt standing there, wishing someone, anyone, would step in. I looked at Julian again. He lifted his glass, laughing. Alive. And the idea of doing nothing suddenly felt unbearable. I ducked behind the bar and grabbed a receipt. My pen slipped in my fingers. I wrote fast. No full explanation. No names. Just the truth. Your fiancé sold you out. They're in position. Balcony. Seconds. I folded the paper once. Twice. 3 times. The quartet swelled into the opening of the toast. I stepped forward. Every step felt like walking into a storm. I approached from his left like I was supposed to. "Excuse me, sir," I said quietly. "Your drink." My voice didn't shake. I don't know how. I set the glass down and slid the receipt beneath the coaster. Then I broke the rule every server learns on day 1. I touched him. Just barely. My fingers brushed the back of his hand. Julian's head snapped up. His eyes met mine. Focused. Not surprised, measuring. The kind of eyes that cataloged threats automatically. For a split second, the noise of the room faded. It was just us. I didn't blink. I mouthed the word. His fingers closed over the paper. Evelyn turned toward me, smiling. "Is there a problem?" she asked sweetly. Julian didn't look away from me. "No," he said evenly. "Everything's fine." The toast began. Applause rippled through the room. Julian casually unfolded the receipt beneath the table. I watched his face. Nothing. Something. His jaw tightened. Just a fraction. Enough. He set his glass down gently. Too gently. Julian straightened, lifting his champagne flute. "If I could have everyone's attention," he said, his voice carrying effortlessly. Evelyn stiffened. "This is unexpected," she murmured. "Is it?" he replied softly. He turned his head slightly. "You," he said without looking at me. "Another drink. For my fiancé." My stomach dropped. "Yes, sir." I moved back to the bar, my hands trembling as I poured the whiskey. The room buzzed with curiosity now. People sensed something was off. When I returned, Evelyn reached for the glass. Julian moved it away. "Let's trade," he said. Her smile flickered. "What?" "I'll have yours. You'll have mine." The air around them shifted. Subtle. Deadly. "That's odd," she laughed lightly. "Even for you." Julian's eyes locked onto hers. "Is it?" Silence stretched. Then Evelyn picked up his glass. "To trust," she said. "To trust," Julian echoed. They drank. Nothing happened. But her hesitation had already told him everything. Julian set the glass down and looked at me again. "What's your name?" he asked calmly. "Ray," I said. "Ray," he repeated. "Do you run when things get dangerous?" Before I could answer, the lights went out. Not dimmed. Gone. The quartet cut off mid-note. Screams tore through the ballroom as glass shattered and bodies collided in the dark. Chairs scraped across marble. Someone fell hard near me, shouting in pain. Then a sharp crack split the chaos. A gunshot. Close. Too close. Julian's hand clamped around my wrist with iron force. "Move," he said directly into my ear, his voice stripped of warmth and replaced with something cold, precise, and commanding. And when I let go, run. He shoved me forward just as another shot rang out. I stumbled, barely keeping my footing as people surged around me. Someone slammed into my shoulder. Another scream echoed behind us. I didn't look back. I ran. Through overturned tables. Over shattered glass biting into my shoes. Toward a service corridor lit only by red emergency lights. Behind me, the ballroom erupted, not in panic, but in organized chaos. I heard shouted commands. Footsteps that didn't hesitate. Men moving with purpose. This wasn't a robbery. This was a kill operation gone wrong. I burst through the service doors, lungs burning, heart hammering so hard it drowned out everything else. The hallway smelled like disinfectant and fear. I thought Julian had left me. Then a door slammed open behind me. He grabbed my arm again, pulling me into a narrow utility stairwell and slamming the door shut. his body positioned instinctively between me and the hallway. "Stay quiet," he said under his breath. Footsteps thundered past outside the door. Voices. Angry. Urgent. Then silence. Julian exhaled slowly and turned to face me, eyes sharp even in the red emergency glow. "You heard her," he said. It wasn't a question. "Yes," I replied. "Every word." "My fiancé," he said flatly, "ordered my death." I nodded. He let out a short, humorless breath. "She always hated loose ends." The reality of what I'd done finally settled into my bones. "I didn't know what else to do," I said. "I couldn't just walk away." "You didn't." His gaze locked onto mine. "You saved my life." Then his expression hardened. "And in doing that, you just put a target on your back." Before I could respond, his phone vibrated. He checked it, jaw tightening. "They're sweeping the building," he said. Half of security was compromised. My stomach dropped. "So what happens now?" He studied me like he was recalculating the board. "Now," he said, "you disappear." We didn't leave through the front. Julian moved me through service corridors, loading docks, and finally into a waiting car that pulled away just as police sirens cut through the night. Only when the city lights blurred past the window did my breathing slow. Evelyn was arrested within hours. Not publicly for attempted murder. For fraud. Financial manipulation. Wire transfers tied to offshore accounts. Julian made sure the evidence landed in the right hands. The media called it a tragic betrayal. They never mentioned me. I didn't go back to work. I didn't go back to my apartment. Within 2 days, my identity was wiped clean, my lease settled, my phone replaced with one that only rang when Julian called. I told myself it was temporary. That once things cooled down, I'd walk away. But you don't really walk away from a life you accidentally save. Weeks later, we met again. Not at a gala. Not in the dark. In a quiet cafe overlooking the river. Julian looked different without the suit, without the crowd. Still dangerous. Still controlled. But real. "You could have ignored it," he said. "Could have let it happen." "I know." "You didn't." I met his eyes. "No." He studied me for a long moment, then nodded once. That decision changed everything. He was right. I wasn't just a server anymore. I was the man who slipped a warning across a table and shattered a carefully planned execution. The man who heard death coming and stepped into its path. And sometimes, late at night, I still hear his voice. "Do you run when things get dangerous?" I didn't then. And I don't now. If you made it to the end, thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this story, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments, where are you watching from? More dark stories are coming.